You are standing in a stadium that holds 60,000 of your own people, and every single one of them believes in you. You can feel it in your chest before kickoff. That low, rolling hum, 100,000 hands clapping in the same rhythm, a flag the size of the pitch passed hand over hand across the stands. This is your country. This is your tournament. You were not brought here to compete. You were brought here to win, in front of them, on this grass, under these lights. And then the whistle blows, and within 11 minutes, the most loved football nation on earth begins to die in front of its own children. Belo Horizonte. The 8th of July, 2014. Brazil, the nation that taught the world that football could be joy, the nation that gave us the very idea of the game played like a dance, is hosting a World Cup for the first time in 64 years. They have waited a lifetime to wash away an older wound. And in the semi-final, against Germany, the wound is not washed away. It is reopened and salted and torn wider than anyone thought a wound could go. It starts in the 11th minute. Germany score, the crowd shifts in its seat. Then the 23rd minute, 2. The 24th, 3. The 26th, 4. The 29th, 5. Read those numbers again. 5 goals in 18 minutes, 5 goals before the half-hour mark of a World Cup semi-final at home. The camera finds a boy in the stands, maybe 10 years old, holding his face in both hands, and beside him a grown man is weeping openly, not hiding it, because there is nothing left to hide. By the end, it is 7-1. 7. The worst defeat in the entire history of Brazilian football. Their first loss on home soil in nearly 40 years. They call it the Mineiraço, the agony of the Mineirão, and in Brazil that word still lands like a slap. And here is the cruelty that makes it worse. Brazil had felt this exact wound once before. 1950, the first time they ever hosted a World Cup. They built the Maracanazo, the largest stadium on earth, for one single purpose, to crown themselves champions in front of 200,000 of their own people. They needed only a draw in the final. They lost to Uruguay in a silence so total that grown men fainted in the stands. They called it the Maracanazo, and it scarred the nation so deeply they changed the very color of their shirts to bury the memory of it. 64 years later, they brought the World Cup home again to finally heal that scar. And the football gods, who keep a long memory and a cruel sense of rhythm, handed them the Mineiraço instead. Twice Brazil opened their doors to the world. Twice the house came down on their heads. Here is the question this whole story turns on. How does the best footballing nation in the world, playing at home, surrounded by love, collapse so completely? The answer is the thing nobody prints on the ticket. The answer is the weight. Because home is not an advantage, home is a weight. Every other team that arrives at a World Cup arrives light. They can lose and fly home and be forgiven because nobody truly expected them to win. But the host carries something no opponent carries. The host carries the hope of an entire nation pressed down onto 11 pairs of shoulders every single day. In every newspaper, on every street corner, in the eyes of every stranger who stops you to say, "Do not let us down. You are not playing a football match anymore. You are carrying a country. And a country is heavy. Watch what that weight does. It does not make you play worse in the way you would expect. It makes you afraid of the very thing you came to do." The host stops playing to win and starts playing not to lose. The passes get shorter. The shots do not come. The body tightens at the exact moment it needs to be loose, because some animal part of the brain has understood that out there, beyond the touchline, are millions of people who will never forgive a single mistake. Sports psychologists have a name for it. They call it the home choke. The strange, well-documented pattern where the pressure to win in front of your own people becomes so total that it strangles the very performance it demands. There is a cruel physiology underneath it. Under that kind of pressure, the body floods with adrenaline meant for fight or flight. The hands shake, the vision narrows to a tunnel. The legs that have run all season suddenly feel like they belong to someone else. The simplest pass, the one you have made 10,000 times without a single thought, becomes a decision, and a decision made in fear is a decision you can get wrong. Now multiply that by 11 men, all feeling it at the same moment, all watching each other feel it, and a team does not so much lose as seize up. The crowd that was meant to lift them becomes the very thing they are most afraid of. Now travel back 4 years to 2010. South Africa, the first World Cup ever held on the African continent, and a whole continent leans in. The sound of that tournament is the vuvuzela, that endless, droning, defiant roar you could hear from space. The hosts open the tournament with a goal so beautiful the stadium nearly comes apart. And then the wait arrives. South Africa draw, then lose, then win, and it is not enough. They finish level on points, beaten only on goal difference, edged out by the smallest cruel margin the game offers, behind Mexico, and history records something that had never happened before in 80 years of World Cups. The host nation goes home in the group stage, first out. The party they built for the world, and they are not invited to stay. The vuvuzelas keep roaring, but the team is gone. And it is not only the heartbreak hosts. Listen to a colder story. Spain, 1982. Hosts of the World Cup, a proud football country, and everyone assumes the home soil will lift them. It does the opposite. They stumble through the opening round, held to a draw by tiny Honduras in their very first match, scraping forward without ever once looking like the team the nation was promised. They limp into the second group phase, and there they simply stop, beaten by West Germany, held by England, eliminated without a fight, the home crowd filing out in a silence that says everything. No catastrophe, no 7-1, just a slow, grey suffocation. The hosts, underwhelming, on their own grass, in front of their own people. Sometimes the weight does not crush you in one afternoon. Sometimes it just quietly squeezes the life out of you over 3 weeks until there is nothing left. So is it a curse? Is home simply doom? No. And this is the part you have to hold on to. Because the weight cuts both ways. The same pressure that crushed Brazil and broke South Africa and smothered Spain, that exact same pressure has twice been turned into rocket fuel. The trick was never to escape the weight. The trick was to stop fighting it and let it carry you. Argentina, 1978. Hosts, a nation desperate, a tournament drenched in noise and falling ticker tape, a final against the Netherlands. And Argentina do not shrink. They feed on the roar. One man scores twice in that final, the whole country pouring its hope through him, and Argentina lift the trophy on their own soil for the first time ever. The weight did not break them. They strapped it to their backs and used it to fly. And then the cleanest proof of all. France, 1998. Hosts, a whole nation holding its breath through a month of tension, and in the final, against a Brazil side full of the best players alive, France do not freeze. They explode. 3-0. The hosts, champions of the world, in their own capital, the streets turning into one vast ocean of celebration that does not end for days. The first host nation to win the tournament since Argentina, 20 years before. Same weight, same crushing expectation. Opposite ending. That is the secret the whole story has been circling. Home does not decide whether you win or lose. Home only turns the volume up on everything. Every nerve, every doubt, every flash of brilliance, all of it amplified until it either drowns you or lifts you off your feet. The weight is the same. What changes is whether the team can breathe underneath it. Which brings us, at last, to right now. Because as you watch this, a new World Cup is alive across 3 nations at once: the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The first time in history 3 hosts have carried this thing together. From the 11th of June to the 19th of July, the games run across an entire continent. And somewhere in those packed stadiums tonight, 3 host nations are walking out onto the grass to that same low rolling hum, the same 100,000 hands, the same flag the size of the pitch, the same impossible, beautiful, suffocating love, the same weight that broke Brazil, the same weight that lifted France. Look closely at their faces in the tunnel before kickoff. Somewhere behind the eyes, every one of them is already feeling it. The hope of a continent pressing down, the whole world watching to see which way they fall. They will either be crushed by it, like the nation that invented joy, or they will strap it to their backs and fly. And we will be here, match by match, to watch every single one of them find out which they are. Subscribe, and we'll keep bringing you these stories.